I'd like to start you off with a quick video. How many of you have heard of this thing called Google Analytics? Yes? Oh, awesome. Almost everybody. Many of you might have seen this video. Some of you might not.
Hey, just that, thanks.
You sure?
Yeah.
Username?
Nick M?
No.
NM 1983?
No.
Zandy Pops? Sorry. Zandy Pops?
No, okay, don't worry, I'll help. What's your postcode?
Oh, it's GU749ZT.
Welcome back, Nick Forever.
Right.
Please listen carefully to this bread license agreement before continuing with your purchase of a loaf of bread. If you do not, blah, blah, blah. You also agree not to use any bread-based product for any purposes prohibited by United Kingdom law, including without limitation the design, development, manufacture of missiles, chemical, nuclear, or biological weapons.
Tick.
I'm afraid you've timed out.
What? Sorry. Hello? Excuse... Oh, yeah, hey.
Just one loaf, sir.
Yeah, we just...
What's your username?
It's Nick Forever, but number 4, not the...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to check that you're a real person. Could you say that for me?
It's not even a word.
Okay, how about this one?
You know what, forget it.
Or this one?
Hippopotamus.
You're in.
Great, I'm in.
£8.85.
It's supposed to be 98 pence.
Plus express delivery.
What's that?
Oh, well, it's express delivery. It's fast. So there's, standard. Standard delivery, that's £4.99.
Why?
Bread insurance. You didn't untick the don't decline bread insurance option.
You know what, I think I'll risk it.
It is quite close to the sell-by date.
Don't care.
98 pence it is. If you want to pop back in 5 business days, it'll be ready for your collection.
Well, I need it now, obviously.
Oh, okay. You want the take-home today price? Well, that's £3.27.
You know what, I'm going to go.
Come back soon.
I won't.
All right. So you can see the difference between Google marketing and Bing marketing. I've seen a couple of Bing ads lately. They're all about talking about scroogling and stuff. So we're going to talk today about Google Analytics. It's a great tool. Most of you seem to have used it already, so you kind of grasp. So the first half of this is going to be a recap of the feature set for you. The second half I think you might find interesting. That's some of the newer features coming up this year. And a lot of that stuff is not public yet, so you might not have seen it. So let's get started. Before that, let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Rachit, as James gave me that brief. I think probably the most interesting things is that I got to be lucky enough to be the first here to be certified by Google for AdWords and analytics. So I've been playing with those tools for almost 10 years now. And I've done a lot of weird things to kind of get good at this. So for a while in there, I was a hypnotherapist. Really, I'd help people lose weight and quit smoking and things. And I have a story in my head about how that ties together. It doesn't really. It's just something I was bumming around with. But it's been an interesting journey getting here. I got started in digital marketing a long, long time ago when this guy used to be cool. Bill Gates, everybody remember this? When I was very young, my dad gave me this book. And, well, in the 80s and 90s, the cool stuff had hardcover books. And in the 90s, the really cool books had CD-ROMs at the back. And it was just like so cool. So you'd pop it in and there'd be this QuickTime video. And Bill Gates has this awesome video of what the future world looks like. And you're touching everything and you're speaking and things respond. Kind of stuff we take for granted today. But that really got me excited into technology. And I grew up in Bangalore, India. And I moved here for university. And I studied computer science, of course, and I grew bored of it pretty quickly. So for a while there, I moved to the US and worked for a startup in Philadelphia. Now, has anybody here used a business card scanner? One of those things where you throw the business card in there, it pulls out the name and email address and things. So this company I was working for was making something called a receipt scanner. Essentially, you throw the receipt in there and it pulls out the amount and starts making expense reports. Kind of boring, but apparently a big business need. And so when I got there were only 4 people in the business, all founders who were building the product, and there was nobody selling the damn thing. And so I volunteered myself to be the chief marketing officer. And for a startup with no money or anything, the only thing we could do was build a website, and this thing called Google AdWords was just taking off then. So we bought these search ads to drive traffic there, and that thing worked well. This was 2004, and we managed to sell about $2 million off the scanner in about 18 months. And I was feeling cocky. Like, oh, I can do this shit. So I came back to Singapore, and I started a services firm. And of course, I came back down to earth pretty quickly when I had to go around begging clients for work. But that's when I started my firm. And it's been a bit of a journey for me, but it's been an enriching one. Today, we do almost everything related to digital marketing. So we do social media, search marketing, analytics, conversion. And for all of these things, we do quite a bit of training and quite a bit of consulting work. And so it's a fun place to be. We've grown from 1 to about 20 now, spread across 2 countries, and lots of interesting stuff that we get to put our hands into. So that's mainly me. The reason I put it up there is if you ever need to reach me, just remember the word Happy Marketer. You can always head down to our website and find me. So when I was studying in NUS, it's just down the road, actually, and I used to study in the Department of Computer Science. And as you guys can imagine, not all the cute women are in computer science. They were mostly in arts. So we used to take chances to go eat at arts canteen wherever possible, and tiptoe past the lectures and so on. And so this one time, I used this story a lot, but I was in an arts lecture, for academic purposes, obviously. And I saw a philosophy professor pull up this slide. Well, not this slide, but a slide of a half-fallen tree. And he had a quote up on screen, which is, if a tree falls in a forest, but nobody's around to hear it, did it really fall? Of course, I wasn't paying attention then, but somehow it got embedded in my head, and years later, I remember it for some reason. And, that reminds me, it's kind of like all the marketing stuff we do in my industry. We do a lot of marketing campaigns, build a lot of microsites, buy traffic, do social media. Everybody has a social media Facebook page now. But we don't do a great job of measuring it. Nobody's around to hear it if this tree is falling, right? And so that is the point of, I think, Google Analytics, where it's not that we don't do enough, it's that we don't do enough, measure ourselves, and then optimize what we do. And this is where this tool called Google Analytics helps. If you have a lot of activities that send traffic, if you do a lot of work on websites or pages or mobile apps or assets, but nobody's paying attention to exactly what's working and what's not, all of that is kind of going to waste. And that's exactly the reason why Google has invested in this tool called Google Analytics. So if you apply this principle, essentially it boils down to how do we increase business. It works in any kind of business. So if you think about a physical shop, if you have a retail store that sells sports memorabilia in a mall, if you ask the question, how do I improve my sales? I'm sure each one of you has lots of ideas, right? You'll have suggestions like do more promos, give more deals, get a better location, put up a banner somewhere, or play within the store, put the hot selling items near the checkout counter, put it out, right? So when it comes to conversion and driving people through the door, we have a lot of ideas. But offline store is hard to track. You can't really have somebody follow around every customer and try to figure out what they're doing, if it's working, if it's not. Online is much easier. If you had the same online shop, if you were selling sports memorabilia, it's very easy to get exactly what the customers are doing. It's very easy to see that this particular category is more popular than that category. You don't need a rocket scientist to figure that out. And Google Analytics does a very good job of this. Analytics is an old field. The first traces of this were in the early 90s. Everybody remember these things? Everybody who had a little site or blog or university page had a little blinking thing at the bottom. You were so proud when you hit the 300 hit. And even big websites used to have these hit counters. And very quickly things matured as we had more e-commerce and the dot-com boom started taking off. And really the mid-90s were the growth of this industry of web analytics. There are a lot of players in here, apart from Google Analytics, that do a great job. So Adobe owns someone called Omniture. IBM owns 2 companies called Unica and Core Metrics. There's a couple of other independent companies. And analytics is a very, very huge growth area. And so a lot of companies invest in this now, but the core of what we see in Google Analytics actually build up from here, from the mid-90s. That's almost 20 years ago. Lots happened since then. From the initial log files and analysis, we moved on to JavaScript tagging and browser tracking and all sorts of awesome features that we've been adding. And of course, the big move in analytics came in 2005 when Google acquired this company called Urchin, and they released it for free, called it Google Analytics. And that was a bad day for every other web analytics platform, by the way. But it was a really powerful enterprise strength tool available to all of us. The kind of stuff that they're struggling with now is figuring out what to do about social and mobile, right? Because most of our activity is now shifted away from the website. So they're trying to expand that. And right at the end, I'll talk about one of the features that tries to bridge that gap. So for those of you who are not very well versed with analytics, let's do a quick walkthrough of what is Google Analytics. So it's a quick tool that gives you performance of your website, whether it's about how people are getting in there, or it's about what people are doing within your site. That's the purpose of Google Analytics. Okay, that's a very simple purpose. It's actually broken down into about 200 different reports. If you log in today, you know that it's a very complex interface. You get a lot of stuff going on in there. So let's break down all the different areas it works with. The first and the most popular area is what content on the site is working. So you have these things called content reports that give you which are your most popular pages. And on those pages, are people spending time? Are they clicking onto other pages? Are you designing the content appropriately that people are engaged? We have this cool feature called in-page analytics, which basically gives you a snapshot of your page along with little bubbles that tell you where people are clicking. Okay, now, incidentally, if you do use analytics a lot, you'll find that in-page analytics is kind of broken. Doesn't work on every page. So I do recommend there are a bunch of great third-party tools. There's one called Crazy Egg. There's another one called ClickTail, which do a much better job of mouse tracking. But for free, in-page analytics is as good as it gets. Another cool feature is internal site search. So if you have a little search box somewhere on your site, they can tell you exactly what people are searching for, how that fluctuates through the day. For example, we work with telcos and we work with airlines. And it's very fun to watch these numbers go up and down as a new Galaxy or an iPhone gets announced, or as a new deal gets announced or a new route gets announced. You know, there's a lot of correlation between what happens in the offline world and what people come here and search for. One of the newest additions, if you do SEO or mobile stuff, is you got to get your site to load up quickly. So site speed is a great report inside analytics. And not only that, they have other cool Google tools to tell you which parts are slow, what you can do quickly to fix those things. And for real marketers, there's a cool feature for A/B testing known as content experiments. Basically, for testing, you're assuming that the current version of your web page is the worst version you'll ever have. If you test, if you create more variations, if you throw traffic and split them up in different ways, you'll find that, you'll find that you keep improving the conversion rate and the engagement on the page more and more and more. So analytics has all these features and they exist inside the content reports. For those folks who spend a fair bit of money on advertising and marketing, you probably spend money in search marketing, in social media marketing, in EDMs and emails, in buying media. Analytics provides a great post-click performance view for all of these. So your media partners will tell you, yes, you bought 10,000 clicks for $1.30 each, but they don't tell you what happened to those clicks. Analytics can tell you that these guys were good or bad, or how many of them bounced, how many of them converted, right? So all the investments you made in traffic, analytics can give you quantifiable numbers about what they're doing after that on conversion. Speaking of conversion, there's a lot of depth in here about the kind of stuff that can be done on conversion. So every single report, every traffic source, every page, you can see the appropriate conversion numbers with it. Now, you might not immediately relate to conversion because in Singapore, we don't have that many e-commerce sites. So you might think that, okay, I'm not buying anything, how is that a conversion? But every site has some purpose. It's built to fill out a lead generation form or get somebody to pick up the phone and call or send you an email or download a PDF. There can be a lot of smaller conversions along the way. And so whatever conversions you define, analytics can figure out how many people are doing it, where people are dropping off from that path. So maybe you can redesign some elements of that. And for really large companies, they have features that allow you to weigh different things against each other. Like, is the first click most important? Or is the final click that brought the conversion most important? And you can play with a lot of mathematical models there. For those of you involved in mobile apps and mobile websites, Analytics does a great breakdown of all the devices that are in there. It provides a pretty good location-specific view. So if you need to do local marketing, it has reports for that. And if you run an app, you can configure Analytics to tell you which parts of the app are being used, which features, which buttons, which UI elements are doing well. Any question you have about whatever you've designed, Analytics can answer that question. And finally, the big buzzword of today is social. So the first thing that Analytics does very well, it adds on conversions to the social equation. Right now, social seems to be all about generating fans. Right? I started my Facebook page. How do I get my fans up? How do I get more people to like it? But once that tapers down, people are going to ask the question, okay, now I got 20,000 fans. Are they actually converting to business? Analytics can help figure that out. It can help figure out if the Facebook traffic sends enough juice our way to convert. Or maybe it does assists. Maybe it increases our brand name. People come here once, but they actually come back from search or EDM and convert. A lot of complex marketing pictures Analytics can kind of figure out for us. It can, of course, tell us if there's any sharing. So who likes, who tweets, who plus ones. Well, nobody really plus ones a page, but they hope that enough people do that. And finally, Google acquired a little company called PostRank about 3 years ago, which was a social listening tool. So when they figure out their little feud with Facebook about, who's the tallest in Silicon Valley, hopefully eventually they'll release some cool social listening tools that allow us to figure out who's mentioning our brand, what the sentiment associated with that is, and maybe even an interface that allows us to respond right within it. It does all these in a very cool interface, so it's web-based. It has a super cool feature called real-time reports, which tells you how many people are on your site right now. That's one feature not too many people use. If you have more complex features like revenue that breaks down by different stores, or conversions that maybe you have 20 different conversions, all of this stuff can be taken care of with these sort of custom reports, custom variables, segments. Right. So essentially, there are 4 kinds of people in an organization that get to use analytics. Designers need to use analytics to figure out who's using their site. Is it Internet Explorer 5.5 or is it iOS? What is the screen resolution? How much time are they taking to load up my design? So designers have these sort of questions about what is this screen that they're playing on. And that's where this information that they pick up, they get to design their UI based on that. Programmers have slightly more technical questions. How long does it take to load my page? Do people have Java or Flash or whatever technology I'm trying to use? Right? So they can get those sort of questions answered. Marketers are most worried about, I bought traffic or I did this buzz campaign. Did they actually come back to the site? When they came to the site, did they actually buy something or fill out a form or download something? And so marketers can get a ROI picture from here. Right? And managers can get a big picture year-on-year analysis or month-on-month analysis. In analytics, we have a term for the managers. They're called HIPPO, which stands for highest paid person's opinion. In most companies, when you walk in, there's a boardroom meeting. Almost all the decisions get taken by HIPPOs. No matter what cool data or creative ideas get presented, if a HIPPO walks in with an idea, that's the one that gets approved. So our hope as analysts and data-driven people is to influence the HIPPOs to be more logical, to actually use past results rather than what they think should happen. All right, so that's a quick intro into analytics. So I want to jump into the meat and potatoes, which is what should you be doing with Google Analytics this year? Right? So what's your plan for 2013 with analytics? So I'll start off from the essentials. You should be doing this stuff on a day-to-day basis, and I'll end up with some of the more advanced concepts. So the first and most essential concept is to move beyond measurement. The most common way Google Analytics is used today is to send a monthly report that says we had 30,000 visitors and 120,000 page views last month. What that means, nobody knows. Right? So that's just measurement. That's some number that somebody can throw on a PPT or an Excel. But that doesn't provide insight into what we need to do. The whole point of analytics is to help us take action. So, for example, a piece of data you might have is a lot of people coming to our site from Japan and then bouncing away. Right? That's the measurement. That out of my 3,000 visitors, 600 of them came from Japan, and these guys only spent 30 seconds on the site, whereas everybody else spent 6 minutes. That's the measurement. The analysis of that is my site obviously doesn't cater to Japanese readers. And the improvement is to create a Japanese landing page. Right? So it's a very logical flow, but most people end up stopping at step one. That data, that measurement doesn't do anything. But figuring out what that means, why that happened, and what we can do to make it better, that's the real juice of analytics. So that'll be the step one. The first and foremost thing that if you work with other people in your team is to spread this idea. It's not a one-step process of recording snapshots. It's a three-step process of figuring out what actions we have to take. Second, slightly more technical one, is that analytics works with JavaScript. What that means is there's a little JavaScript piece of code that needs to go onto the page for you to get any information. Which means that you have to make sure that the code is on every page. The most common bug with analytics installations is people throw the code on their homepage and think they've gotten it all. But unless the code is on the inside pages, on the checkout pages, on the forms, there's no data there. So we have to make sure that whatever CMS, whatever HTML, whatever technology is used to power the website, when it comes to the front-end pages, every single page needs to have that code in there. So make sure that you're checking the code on all these pages on your site, which means your home pages, your content pages, blog, shopping, login, search, mobile, landing, whatever pages that you're throwing up to visitors, they need to have that analytics tracking code on there, right? And it's not very complicated. You can use this cool new plugin that just launched for Chrome called Tag Assistant by Google. Very cool tool. Just open it up there and it'll tell you whether the analytics code is on the page or not. So you just need to browse around the whole site and figure out if it's saying that we've got the code down. The third most essential ground rule is to set goals on the site. If you don't already have goals on your site, make sure that, number one, your macro goals are tracked. Your macro goals relate to the big picture things you need done. If somebody buys something, if you're a hotel or an airline, when somebody does a booking, if you're a B2B company or a lead generation company, then it's about filling out a form or downloading something, right? So these are your macro goals. These are big picture things that affect your bottom line. And then you want to track your micro goals. Micro goals could have to do with if this particular email link led to any traffic, if people are printing, if people are sharing on social media, if people are watching my videos, things that don't immediately bring in revenue, but they help build the brand, they help build the buzz, and eventually help us convert. All right, now we'll move on to the slightly more intermediate things. Those of you who've used the interface a lot will find this interesting. This is the most underused tool inside analytics. It's something called comparison view. When you open up any analytics report by default, which is, let's say you're looking at all your traffic sources, what it does is it gives you a sequential list that Google sent 1,000 people, Yahoo sent 400 people, Facebook sent 200 people. It's just a list, right? It's just a breakdown of how people are coming to your site. But it doesn't give you an idea of the quality of the traffic. It doesn't give you an idea and tell you if people are actually sticking on the site or they're walking away, right? That happens with the comparison view. Within analytics, it's towards the middle of the page on the right-hand side. And what it does is it gives you a very neat graph about what's good and what's bad. Very clearly, stuff in green working well, so it's better than the site average. Stuff in red, not so much. Time to change it up. This comparison view provides context. It's not just about some number. It's about how does that number compare to the entire picture and everything else in that picture. If you are used to pulling out reports, make sure you get familiar with advanced search. There's a little button called Advanced right next to the search box within Analytics, which is extremely powerful. Your basic search box is like Google. You type in a keyword, it finds whatever matches that. But your advanced search helps you figure out lots of details. So if you're looking at traffic sources, you can run an advanced search that says, only show me these sources where the pages per visit is more than 3. That means they're kind of engaged. And the time on site is more than 5 minutes, right? And suddenly it whittles down those 100 traffic sources into 5. And those 5 are the ones you want to pay attention to. So this advanced search can actually do a lot, and it can make your reports very insightful. All right, now let's move on to the slightly more advanced ones. And the first tip there is redo your dashboards. This feature called Google Analytics Dashboards, it's only been launched a few months. But what it does is it finally weans us away from page views and visitors. Finally, we can name things the way we see them in our business. I can name things as bookings, as revenue, if I'm a revenue-generating business. I can name things as leads, as interested, and prospects in my line of business, right? So what this does is not so much for you, because if you use Google Analytics, you kind of get what page views means anyway. But everybody else in your organization doesn't. Your CXOs, your other people that you report to, they don't get all those things. And when you send them a report that says page views and visitors, their first question is, what are page views? What constitutes a page view? And they kind of end up playing devil's advocate and breaking each metric apart. What you want them to do is name these things appropriately, get the right numbers in there, and then they can focus on the real business value. Right? So dashboards, extremely cool. You can take anything, rename it what you want, filter things in there, start creating more dashboards. Real-time analytics. This is very cool. So until a year and a half ago, any data you got inside analytics was about a day old. If a visitor came to the site yesterday, today is when I get to see it. Then they launched this thing called real-time, which basically has a 2-second delay. If all of you visit my site right now, I can see the spike in real-time right now. So real-time is very effective for certain kinds of businesses. If you have a lot of offline stuff going on, like TV or events, then real-time can give you a very quick picture of how this is going. Or if you put up a big social media post, you hired a popular blogger or a tweeter to tweet out for you, you can see right there what the effect is right after that tweet. Okay. And now we'll move on to the really technical stuff. The first is this tool called Google Tag Manager. It's a new tool launched about 4 months ago, google.com/tag manager. Essentially, there's a lot of JavaScript stuff that happens by AdWords, by Yahoo, by Bing. Everybody wants their own little JavaScript code thrown on, and that slows down the page. What Tag Manager does is it has one interface to manage all the techie side of analytics. So you as the marketer can manage it instead of relying on the IT person. So you can launch campaigns quickly, track conversions quickly. So Google Tag Manager, look it up, very cool tool. Make it part of your plans this year. It's not the best tool in the market. There's actually other tools. There's one called Tagman, another one called OpenTag, which are also, there's some free options, and they are much more powerful than this. So look at the whole industry in general. The biggest feature that analytics is going to launch this year is about figuring out how do we track people cross-device. If somebody checks my website in the morning on the train on their way to work, and the same person comes back in the afternoon and checks from their office computer, and in the evening they go back home and check from their tablet at home, how do I pull the data for this person together? How do I track the activity for this particular user? And that's a shift from page view kind of tracking to visitor tracking, following one person everywhere in their activities on the site. And that's something called universal analytics. Okay? So it's in beta right now. It's a very powerful feature. And it should hopefully give you a very accurate view of what your customers are doing, not some anonymous generic customers or people surfing on your website. Right? So if you have actual customers in mind, this can help put a much more complete picture together. Technically, this is a bit challenging. And if you are part of the tech team that's investigating this, you will come across some challenges, but it's an ambitious mission. And anybody who's doing analytics should look at this this year. And the final thing you should do this year, which is a slide that I use every year, is before you go and look at a lot of cool analytics tools, before you go look at Google Analytics Premium and Omniture and Unica, invest in some geeks. Put a nerdy guy with glasses on the job, have him spend 20 hours a month looking over the numbers. Much more valuable than any tool you can build up. Right? I see a lot of organizations who want to investigate cool analytics tools, but they have one analyst working on there. Or maybe they have an agency where somebody spends 10, 20 hours a month. That's not enough for large sites that have a lot of stuff going on. So for practitioners in the room, what you want to do is get a bit more disciplined about spending time in your own Google Analytics. Just relying on the default reports isn't going to cut it. It requires digging in, it requires analysis for you to make improvements. For decision makers, please make sure you maximize your tool first. Put people on the job, get them to analyze. If you're a small firm, get a consultant for a couple of hours a month. If you're a large firm, build up your own team. But people pay back much more than any tool. Cool, so that was my cool, geeky intro to Google Analytics.